All right, we're starting. So, hi everyone. This is Mary, a Pittsburgh artist, and I'm in my studio, and I am with Staci. I don't know how to say Staci's
I
last
just
name.
use Staci B. It's
Okay,
easier.
Staci B. Yes, I am sure that'll be easier for some of the people that announce you too, because other people kind of help me out here with these interviews, and they'll announce it on their channels. So, okay, we're ready to start. Um, okay, so I wanted you to tell our viewers a little bit about your background, and I know you're involved in the arts in many ways. So if you could talk about that a little bit, that would be great.
Sure. Well, I have a varied and checkered background when it comes to the arts. I've always loved the arts. I was raised here in Pittsburgh, and my mother and I used to usher at the Pittsburgh Public Theater back when they were over on the north side at the New Hazlet.
Okay.
So I've loved, I was raised on public television in WQED. I've
Mm,
always loved the arts, Masterpiece Theater, the original Poldark.
nice, nice,
um, and I've always been a writer,
nice.
and I have the horrible prepubescent poetry that proves that.
Oh, well, sometimes those are the best ones, though.
Well, yeah, well, expressing myself has always been something that has been extremely important
Mhm,
to my spiritual and mental well-being.
mhm.
And so I have used multiple mediums over the years because of it. And I do want to mention this, especially for anybody who might be listening who has been affected by a teacher or a parent or somebody in an authority role. I kept myself away from being a visual artist
Mhm.
and a designer for so many years because I'm left-handed and
Ah,
went to Catholic school.
mm. I
And
know that
so
feeling. Yes.
yeah, that was not something. I mean, thank goodness it's different today, but it was a lot different back then, and it
Okay.
was not appreciated. And I was chastised. I would go so far as to call it being shamed at
Exactly.
times for my handwriting. I didn't color within the lines, partly because I just didn't color within the lines, and
Mhm,
partly because I was left-handed, and so I come at everything from a different angle than
mhm.
someone who was right-handed. That continued into my undergraduate days, and it's really only been in the last couple of years, specifically the last 6 months, that I've been able to just throw all of that into the wind and
Right.
say, I'm not living this way anymore.
Right.
You know?
Isn't it sad? I mean, well, I didn't go to Catholic school myself, but my oldest daughter, I had her go through, and she was so far behind once she went into public school. But when she was in second grade, we had the teacher meeting with the nun and everything. And she said in front of me and my daughter that she would not amount to anything. Well, I
Nice.
told her, I said, prove her wrong. Prove her
Yep.
wrong. Well, she is a writer and she has written three. Well, we're on our fourth book now. I've been illustrating it. And I
Oh,
said,
great.
yeah, I said, you cannot let someone put you down like that. But when you're young, it happens. I mean, I've been put
Right.
down too, like be in public schools and, thinking I wasn't anything very special. So, you just have to put it in perspective, make sure that you feel good about you, and
Exactly. I wasn't aware that I didn't feel good about that. I just avoided it. And I
well,
thought I avoided it because I didn't have any talent,
and look at
you
you
know?
now.
And I know now that I do.
Yes,
And art is subjective. Not everybody's going to love what I do. Not everybody's going to dislike what I do.
right,
It's a matter of finding your tribe and
right,
then building on that as an artist, as a human being, you
right.
know? Um,
I
but I
found
just
that
think
myself.
it's really important to remind people that it's really valuable to become aware of those voices that are whispering that you're not aware of,
Right,
that are driving the bus.
that's right, that's right.
Because if somebody would have told me a couple of years ago, even a year ago, Mary,
Hmm.
that I would have done a window for the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership, that I would have designed a piece of clothing with my words on it,
Nice.
I'd have told them they were insane.
Isn't that something? Oh wow.
Mhm.
I know, like I think I became a better person when I went to college. I went to college later in life, but it just
Okay.
seemed like I felt much better about me because I could prove myself, and that's where I started really doing art because I didn't want to enter any exhibits or any of that kind of thing. I just wanted to, do nothing like that. It was just, but then I started to enter exhibits and I thought, well, you know what? There's something good about this,
What the
And
heck?
I haven't won a lot of awards, but I did get one. And that meant so much to me. And after that, I didn't even care if I entered exhibits anymore. It's just like
Right.
I felt good that I could do something that was worth it. It's a shame that people do that to us. I mean, it's sad, that we have
Well,
to
and
go
when it
through it.
happens before you really have a decent level of cognitive ability,
Mhm,
for me, it just registers in your cells
mhm. It
and
does.
you don't even know what's going on.
Right. Isn't
You
that something?
know,
Yes, yes.
yeah, I've joked for years that you spend like the first 16 years of your life absorbing everybody else's crap. And
Mhm.
if you're lucky, you spend the rest of your life letting go of it.
Yes. That is so true. That is so
You know?
true. I mean, there are times, you still go back there, but you
Oh,
try not to.
absolutely.
Right,
Absolutely. But for me, that's just part of the life journey. And
right,
expressing that is how I keep myself sane.
right. Good. That's good. Well, tell us a little bit about some of the art projects that you've worked on and your writing and
Well, writing was my initial art.
mhm.
Uh, until very recently, I would have considered it to be my predominant art. And it's something I love. I've written several books. I don't know, 6 or 7 at this point between novels and nonfiction. And haiku has been something that's been a part of my life for about 20 years now. I
Okay.
taught a creative writing class when I lived in Tampa because I left Pittsburgh in the mid 80s because there weren't any jobs
Mhm.
after the steel mills closed.
Right.
I did a brief stint in West Palm Beach, then lived in New York City for 15 years,
Oh,
then
wow.
Tampa for 10, and I came back here 9 years ago. Memorial Day was 9 years. So
Okay.
it's really been a journey.
Mhm.
And one of the things I thought about in preparing for this conversation with you is just how much the art world and society can it can kind of feel like if you're not focusing on just one thing and
Mhm.
becoming the authority in that one thing, that you're not as valuable as somebody who does impressionist art
Mhm.
or who plays the guitar. It's that Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours to become an expert at anything is the minimum. You
Mhm.
know, and I have learned for myself that the 10,000 plus hours is best spent on knowing who I am.
Mhm. Right.
And then let the expression of whatever that is take whatever form it needs to.
Mhm.
If it's writing, awesome. If it's watercolors, awesome. If it's acrylic or music or whatever, because I find creative cross training to be very valuable.
Nice. Yes. I mean, I'm very diverse. I think that's an important part of being who you are. You know, the more you know, the better you are. That's how I
Right.
feel. And yeah, I agree. I agree. So, well, let me ask you how you got into this art. I guess it was a journey for you. You started
It,
at a young age writing.
right. It was. And actually, I kind of started coming back to it around 2010.
Hmm.
I had been through a very bad breakup.
Oh,
My heart was broken. My soul, I felt like Humpty Dumpty. And we've all
oh,
been there,
yes, yes.
And a friend of mine showed up at my house one day with a bunch of art supplies. And my response was, do I look like Rosie O'Donnell? Because that is not my thing, you know? And she was completely insistent.
Mhm,
And I began to dabble, and then I began to make things with the haiku.
mhm.
And that's what kind of started me on the journey. And I have a sketch pad that's 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
I looked at the very first page of it the other day, and the date was 2011.
Oh, my. Oh, my.
So that's how long I've been sketching and playing with watercolors. And, yes, I've watched YouTube videos. I took some art classes when I lived in New York City on
Mhm,
the human body, drawing and those kinds of things. And there is huge value in education.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it's important to make the equal focus playing.
Mm-hmm. True.
To
True.
see what ends up happening. And
Right.
so I really have blossomed over COVID, if I'm honest.
Oh, yes. I think with us, I think a lot of people have
Yep.
really, well, explain this haiku a little bit so the audience has an idea.
Sure. Well, haiku is, most people don't have any recollection of it past middle school.
Wow.
Because seventh and eighth grade, we were all forced to write haiku.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very accessible form of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
It originated in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and it is 3 lines, 5 syllables on the first, 7 on the second, 5 on the third, for a
Mm-hmm.
total of 17 syllables.
Okay.
And I have used it. I do workshops for writers because nothing will capture the essence of your story like a haiku will.
Uh,
And I've edited a lot of books. I've done book coaching over the years, and people would say to me, "How do I write a book?" And they start to tell me what it's about. And I try not to snore because 10 minutes later, I really don't care. Um, and I tell them, you know what, go put it in haiku. Because
uh-huh.
if you can put your book in 17 syllables, now you're ready to write it.
Interesting.
And I have a process that I've developed
Uh-huh.
that works. I've done some workshops at Point Park and Pitt and other places to really help people capture that essence of whatever the message is.
Nice.
So I find it to be an extraordinarily useful tool for that. I use it in my own spiritual journey.
Mm-hmm.
People can tell that from my Instagram account. I get a lot of haiku from my journaling
Uh-huh.
and my own insights and realizations into life and how I see it and who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's a fabulous tool.
Ah,
It's a fabulous tool.
isn't that interesting? I've never had that, even in college. Well, I'm probably much older than you. And like when I graduated high school, I don't think they even knew what haiku and
Well, it's been around like for
yeah.
thousands of years in Japan.
Uh-huh.
And Basho, who is probably one of the most famous haiku poets to come out of Japan, completely changed the game because originally haiku was used as a game for the upper class. And
Oh,
then when the Japan experienced their period of enlightenment, it began to become accessible to the working class.
I see. Okay.
Okay. And so it wasn't just used in bougie parties for the
Uh-huh.
wealthy anymore. And so Basho kind of, he changed the game because up until that point, haiku was predominantly written about nature.
Okay.
You see tons of haiku about mountains and trees, cherry blossoms, the
Mm-hmm.
lake, the pond, and
Mm-hmm.
all the life around a pond. There's a million haiku written about ponds in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
But he started to incorporate emotions, how
Okay.
you were feeling about what you were seeing, how you were feeling about what you were experiencing. And that completely changed the game of the whole poetry medium.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
When it's taught in middle school and high school, they still focus on nature.
Mm-hmm.
But when I taught it to that creative writing class of senior citizens in Tampa, Florida, the following week, people came in with them scribbled on Dunkin' Donuts napkins
Oh, wow.
and gas station receipts,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, I just pulled over off the side of the road because I saw a magnolia tree blooming.
Oh, wow.
It raises your awareness because to be able to put something in 17 syllables, you have got to raise your awareness.
Right, right. That sounds so fun. I think my kids probably had, I'm sure they had it in college, studying, but that sounds interesting. I have to look
Yeah,
into
it's
that a little bit more.
fascinating, and like I said, it applies to so many things. I actually did a workshop, 2 of them, one for an organization called Rebel, which is a fabulous women's networking group, on haiku as an alternative to journaling.
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I developed a workshop where instead of sitting down with a pen and a notebook and writing 18 pages, and the artist way is fabulous. I'm not knocking anything Julia
Mm-hmm.
Cameron has done, morning pages, journaling, that's all wonderful. But sometimes you just don't have the time
Right. It takes time. That's
to
right.
sit there for a half an hour, 45 minutes. And I've created an easy way to do a data dump
Mm-hmm.
and understand what's really going on in your life. So then you get the choice to prioritize instead of everything just going pyoing, 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 pyoing in your brain
Right.
and you can't catch it.
Right. Oh, nice, nice. Well, I'm going to look into that. I hope some of my audience does too. I mean, it sounds like fun. It sounds like it sounds challenging for the brain too. That's something
Well,
that
because
sometimes.
it's like a verbal Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
literary if we're going to be fancy, you know,
Yeah.
um, because you have to increase your vocabulary.
Yes. Right.
There's so many things that it stimulates in the mind.
Yeah. That's, I think, especially when you've been retired like I have been, the only thing I have is my art. So I need something to stimulate the
Well,
other
you know
thing.
what? For me, it's a brain balance now because I'm using both visual art and haiku.
Uh-huh.
And art is a lot of math and science. Boy, did I learn that doing that
Well,
window last November. Holy
yeah,
crap. I
yeah.
was like, why was
I
I
know you
never
have to
told
do
it
this
was math?
little, yeah, whatever the,
Why was I never told
yes,
all these measurements and calculations? I'm like, I just want to do it. But
yeah,
if you're going to do it and you're going to do it in a way that really expresses the message that you want to send, you have to take the time to do that.
right, right, exactly. Oh, that's fun. That sounds like fun. Yes. Well, so I guess your inspirations come from all over in order to
All
do this.
over. Yeah, I love to do photography. I love to paint. I love to write. Um, yeah, I mean, I'll get into like the other day, I was driving down Liberty Avenue as it became Aiken at Center.
Oh, yes.
And I'm sorry, I don't remember, I think it's the Pennsylvania Conservation Group, whatever it is that plants all the
Oh, yeah,
flowers
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
They had just planted, and they're shaped like a pine tree, but they come in gold and fuchsia and
Oh,
maroon. And
mhm.
they had just planted, I don't know, a very large patch of ground with these little itty bitty baby plants. And I took a photo because it inspired me,
Right. And they
you
do
know?
it so neatly and everything seems measured out, when they do all that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it was
That's
the color. Color and texture is something I'm fascinated with in visual art.
right.
Everything that I do ends up having texture to it. I love playing with the palette knife.
Mm,
I
mhm,
love using things around my house. I mean, I use the end of a paper towel roller for a painting.
mhm.
Where I just dipped it in the acrylic paint and then stamped the circles and different
Yeah.
patterns over the canvas. I mean, there's so much you can use.
Well, I did this on toilet paper. I don't know if you
Yeah.
can you
Why the hell
and
not?
I haven't used this yet, but I am going to eventually use it. I had this idea to put these little flowers on that. So yeah, you can find things all over the place to make art. It's amazing. Yeah, I
I
tried.
think
Oh, go
the
ahead.
thing is you've got to be inspirable.
Right.
I think it's foolish to rely on something to inspire you
Mm,
because nothing has the power to inspire you if you're not inspirable.
right. True.
And that comes from cleaning out the crap. That's what
Mhm.
I've learned from me, you know,
Yeah.
and then everything inspires me from listening to the birds in the morning
Oh
at
yeah.
4 a.m. You know,
They're tweeting out there. Yeah.
yeah, it was fun. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he said his birds start at 6, and I'm like, dude, mine start at 4 o'clock, and he's like, oh, you have working class birds.
They're up at the crack of dawn.
Well, and in my head, I'm like, they're not working. That's Gertrude going, damn it, Sam, where were you all night? I have this whole little sketch in my head all figured out from the chirping birds at
Yeah.
4 a.m.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, that's kind of funny. Yeah, that's yeah. They drive me. Well, I love the sun and I love birds. I love to watch
Yeah,
them. So when I hear that, I think, oh, it's summer. It's time to hear these things. So yeah,
exactly.
it's nice. Well, I guess I'm going to skip a little bit here and just how do you overcome the creative block? I guess through nature.
Nope.
You take.
You know what? I let myself be exactly where the hell I am.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I overcome it. Because if I feel blocked about something, chances are there's something blocking me. That's why they call it artist block, writer's block, whatever, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And the only way to dissolve that block is to become aware of what it is,
Right.
and So if I need to like not get out of bed until 10 one morning, okay, that's what I need. If I need to go sit in Highland Park and just stare out at the trees, or Balm Grove, which I live in Friendship, and I feel so fortunate. This beautiful little parklet is within walking distance from my house.
Oh, nice.
And it's just so lovely to go sit and be in nature, you know, music.
Music helps me a lot. Yeah.
Yep, but predominantly it's giving myself permission. Like I'm wearing this shirt that I'm working on.
I like that.
Yes, it's called because Space and Grace is something that I've really been working on giving myself for a couple of years now. And these were actually the words in various forms that were on the cape that was part of the window that I did for the holiday Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership Project. And so I had written 2 haiku, one on each of the front panels of the cape. And then the back just had Space and Grace in large words. And then all the gifts that come from giving yourself space and grace, that come from giving others space and grace, which is not always easy. People can be idiots. So it's really challenging sometimes. I'm just saying, you know.
That's right.
But it's important for me to stay in alignment to keep that focus. And so this shirt is a piece that I'm working on with just the word space and grace. It's a white shirt that I'm inking by hand. The whole Catholic school thing kept me from liking my handwriting for a long time. Like over 50 years long.
Oh my goodness.
You know, and so I just love putting my words on things. And
my handwriting, I think after I went to college, it's really gone.
And now they're not even teaching it, which, you know, okay, I won't be around in 40 or 50 years in all likelihood, but that's when they're going to start to value it again.
Right. I mean, that's your expression, you know, comes out in your handwriting. What are you going to do? I mean, that's you. Everybody, we all write differently, you know. I'll tell you, Catholic school was tough. I think I told a story about my cousin had, I guess, went home. I guess the nun in the class did something to her. So she went home and told her mom. Well, her mom called and complained about it. So the next day, my cousin goes into the classroom and the nun picks her up and hangs her on a coat hook in the coat closet. And she says to her, "Now go home and tell your mother that." So, I mean, they were just rotten.
Well, and you know what? In all fairness to the nuns, they weren't treated very well.
Well, true.
I'm not excusing their projecting their misery onto children, you know. At the same time, you know, one of my big themes in my life is dissonance. And that is something I believe ought to be taught to children. That can be a skill, you know, and there are lots of opposing things that are true simultaneously.
Exactly.
And people are really dealing with a lot of dissonance in this day and age. And let's use Harvey Weinstein or Bill Cosby as an example.
Right.
You know, they're not great human beings, but does that mean that you should discount all the creativity that they express and all of the progress? I mean, we wouldn't be where we are in the media without the Cosby Show.
Right.
We wouldn't have the kind of films and television programs on HBO we have if it weren't for Weinstein. So what do you do with that dissonance?
Yeah.
Where do you go with it, you know? And that's something that fascinates me because most people, I'm a huge fan of something inspired by Carl Jung, and it's called the third option theory. And it says that most human beings, when presented with 2 options, neither of which appeals to them, they will choose one or the other rather than sitting in the discomfort of not knowing. But if you can stick with the discomfort and the unknown, a third previously inconceivable option will show itself to you.
That's true.
And it happens every time.
That's true.
You know, and so that's definitely, I mean, in my haiku and my art, that is definitely a theme, is processing that dissonance, especially when it's such opposing things like someone who was being mean to children. You know, but the stories my mother could tell, having gone to Catholic school in the 40s. You know, I went in the 60s and it was still pretty bad for someone who wasn't a conformist.
Right.
You know?
Right.
but there are other things that are also true,
Hmm.
you
Well,
know?
I went to Catholic college, and it was I went to Carlo. Um, it was a different atmosphere. Those nuns were totally different. They were like more modernistic, and the things that they taught. I mean, it was not something that was old fashioned. I mean, it was like now and their thoughts were now, and their theology was now.
Well, they had the courage to rebel against the patriarchy of the church,
Uh-huh.
and they found subtle ways to do it so they
Mhm.
weren't sanctioned or excommunicated,
Right,
you
right,
know, but
right,
that's what they were doing. And I admire that so much.
right. Oh, yes, yes. I don't know if you've ever watched The Keepers, but that was quite interesting in how things went there. And the nun that wanted to kind of come out and tell people what was going on got murdered. And like it just that just tells you how everything was kept so quiet. They saw these things happening, and they couldn't really say anything, you
Right.
know, without some repercussion on it. So it was
No, but
very,
there are
very
consequences to everything. There's a
right.
consequence to keeping your mouth shut.
Isn't that
Because
the
if you
thing?
don't think that has an impact on every cell in your body, you're crazy, because it
Mhm.
does.
It does.
It's going to affect how you behave, how you interact, how you navigate through life, how you express yourself, you
Right.
know? And her consequence for saying it was death.
Hmm.
But for me personally, that's a better consequence than living with keeping my mouth shut.
Well,
I don't know
definitely.
that I could have done that.
Yeah. I have been very verbal after college. That's one thing that taught me you can't let things go. If
Right.
something's wrong, you have to say something. And I did it a few times. It didn't help me, but
No, but here's the thing. You don't know who was affected by the ripples you created by throwing that rock in the pond.
that's right.
you
That's
know
also
and it's the same story with being an artist. How many times have you gotten, oh my god, I fell in love with this piece? Yeah, 2%
hmm
of everything I've done. As an artist, you have to have the faith that the expression that you have allowed yourself to produce from your soul, your heart, your mind is going to have an impact, and you may never know about it.
right. That's true. That's true.
So
Yeah,
you don't know who you affected. And you raise a good point, because as artists, art has the power to create social change,
exactly.
whether it's a television show like Cosby,
Hmm.
which led to a different world, which talked about historically black universities, colleges and universities, which, as a white person who grew up in upper middle class white suburbia with nary a black person around me,
Hmm.
was revolutionary for me.
Right,
It
right.
opened my mind,
Exactly.
and the whole thing that connected us in the first place was art against racism.
Hmm. Oh, that's
Because
what I want you to talk about.
Yeah, because this is an organization. I saw a call for artists on Cafe, which
Hmm.
artists will know about. That's a place where it's like submittable for writers, but you can upload your art to, as when there's a call for submissions, whether it's a juried exhibit or whatever it might be. And so I found out about it, and I started this group called the Haiku Ninja Collective a little over a year ago.
Hmm.
I had done a Zoom haiku with the Incline, which is a local news source here in Pittsburgh.
Hmm.
And right at the beginning of the shutdown, it was like the 16th of March. So it was right before
Hmm.
Wolf shut everything down. And people were already freaking out.
Hmm. Oh, wow.
I
Yeah.
mean, there were already a lot of changes happening. People didn't know what to do about anything. And it became very clear to me that people needed to talk about this stuff.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so this evolved into a group of 9 of us, with maybe 8 or 9 people that dropped in occasionally, where we used the method that I've developed to discuss our thoughts and feelings around COVID and life events. And then we created multi-stanza collaborative haiku.
Hmm.
So I have dubbed it a kuren, because there's nothing else like it, because each haiku is written by 3 people.
Oh, okay.
So we would brainstorm thoughts and feelings, words, whatever. And then I would say, who's got 5 syllables? Okay, who's got 7? Who's got 5? And the next thing you knew, we had 14 haiku, each one with 3 different authors.
Oh, wow.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
And when the George Floyd murder happened, I mean, this was something, and we were predominantly white, the collective, but we are all artists. And we are all human beings. The only reason I said artists first is because artists are typically more sensitive
Exactly.
in their constitutions than the average human being. So we started talking about this. We started talking about it. And we had some very interesting conversations. And when I saw the call, Art Against Racism is an organization that was born out of an exhibit done at Princeton.
Oh, okay.
By a gentleman named, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his first name correctly, so I apologize if I'm not, Reinhold Lamar Ponder, who is a lawyer and an artist. And he created an exhibit around racism in 2019. And from this, Art Against Racism as an official 501c3 was born. And their mission is to eradicate racism and to raise awareness of where it exists systemically in our society. And so last year, at the beginning of the year, they put out a call for artists because they were creating something called, and I might mess this up too, the Movement Memorial Monument Project. And within that, they have 4 or 5 different galleries. And they were looking for contributions to the one gallery. And so I took a piece of art that I had done. I took the 9 of the haiku that we had written that were related to this that I felt were good enough to be included. I designed a piece by placing the haiku on the art digitally, and I submitted it and forgot about it. Well, 6 weeks later, I get an email. We are happy to tell you that your piece is going to be included in the Memorial Monument Movement Gallery.
Oh, wonderful.
And so, yes, I mean, it is one of the things that I feel the most joy about, because this is a very challenging time to be alive, period. It is extraordinarily challenging for people of color. And it's also challenging in different ways, I think, for people who are white, who want to understand, who want to support, who want to do the right thing, and sometimes put their foots in their mouths, you know, and who sometimes
they don't mean to, you know,
right. It's not intentional, but it is a product of the systemic racism. You know, like I was talking to somebody the other day about watching Good Times when I was a kid, because that was my whole perspective on Black life in America. Because what else was there?
Right.
You know, and thank God Esther Roll fought with Norman Lear, because that show originally had no father.
Oh, wow.
Which would have painted a completely different picture.
True.
Of that family. It was bad enough they were living in the projects. You know, now I didn't know any of this at the age of 9 or 10 or whatever, how old I was when that show came out, but sometimes white people say stupid things because they still have those data bits in their head about what normal is or what a Black person is, you know? Right. And so it's just challenging. And, you know, love and kindness and raising awareness is the only thing that is going to continue moving us toward a different place than where we've come from or where we are now.
Right.
You know, and I think art has a huge role in that. And I really would encourage everybody to go to artagainstracism.org, click on the galleries tab on the top of the website, and go take a look. Follow them on Instagram at Art Against Racism. See the amazing things that have been created. Familiarize yourself with Black artists. Bisa Butler is one of the it's BISA Butler. Check her out on Instagram. She does everything with material. You would never believe it's not painted when you see a picture of it.
I think I've seen something of her. Yeah.
Mind-blowing.
Yes.
You know, if you're on TikTok, do a hashtag Black Artist TikTok. You know, see what's being done, because then you'll know how people feel without them having to tell you.
Right.
And people can't always express in words how they're feeling, but they do it through art.
Exactly. That's true.
You know, and it's a beautiful way to raise awareness. You know, I was especially honored as a group of mostly white people that our art was chosen for this gallery.
I mean, I don't understand people that, you know, can't see everyone as a human being. We are all human beings, no matter what your race is. And
Right, but here's the thing: we're all human beings, and that colorblind thing
yes,
really ticks off most people of color if you have a
yes,
conversation with them. Because
mhm,
and the University of Minnesota took the I'm trying to remember what the original analogy was. Melting pot, right? That's what they used during Ford's time in Detroit.
mhm,
It was a melting pot. And the University of Minnesota a number of years ago coined a new term called the salad bowl
mm,
because we're not all the same. And to
right,
say that is dishonoring not only our individuality, but our ethnic heritage, our cultural heritage. You know, a cucumber is as valuable as a tomato. It's
exactly.
not all blended together.
Yeah,
And I think that's something that is
I
so
would agree.
important for us as white people to remember and to acknowledge, as challenging and as painful as it can be sometimes, that we develop belief systems based on what we took in, especially people who are over 40. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
Before
we
there was
grew up with
any
it.
kind of
Yeah.
real, because I'm going to be 58 next month, So it's buried in there.
It's in there. Yes. I look back at my younger times, and we and how I didn't realize how that word racism was, because I didn't look at people that way, like their race. And when I was in, I guess it was the first, or maybe, yeah, it must have been first grade. We were having a little auditorium kind of thing, and the auditorium wasn't real big. It was a small school, and there weren't many black people in our grade. Well, this poor little boy needed to go to the bathroom, and they wouldn't let him go. So he peed his pants. And
Mhm.
the principal picked him up and rolled him across the stage, embarrassing him even more. And I was just devastated. I was just devastated. So after school, I kind of was walking home with him, because he lived in the projects. And he told me, he says, you better walk on the other side of the street. He said, because we could get in trouble. First grade. And I thought, I mean, I didn't look at him that way, that he was different, or any of that. And I think that just like kind of changed me, like started
Mhm.
to think about things differently, even in first grade. And everybody thought that this principal was great. She was great. And then I look back at that. She wasn't great. She wasn't
No,
great at
this is where you had that personal experience. But Norman Rockwell painted that painting of Ruby Bridges. That it's a very famous painting of this little black girl walking to a segregated school where they were forcing the school to let her attend
all. Hmm.
with three white male security guards.
Right.
She was like, I don't know the exact age, but she was like 7 or 8 years old,
Yeah.
And so this is how art can take an experience like that and put it out there and convey the power of the emotion
Hmm.
of feeling different.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I moved to West Palm Beach from Pittsburgh, it was 1987. I had been involved with the Guardian Angels a lot, doing PR and stuff for them. I started that when I was at Duquesne.
Hmm.
I was moving to West Palm Beach and was going to be staying for a while with somebody I knew through that organization. There was another guy here. His name was Slade, who was black and dark skinned black, who I was friends with. And he was going to come down with me and then fly back. So I'd have to drive down by myself. 2 days before I was to leave, he called me and he said, Stacy, I can't go. If
Oh,
something happens to that car and we get a flat tire and on the side of the road in South Carolina or Georgia, and I'm in the car with a white woman,
mm,
I am not willing to take that chance. And
yeah.
I think for me, and
Oh,
I was in my 20s at the time, that was my first personal experience with how he lived, because we all use ourselves as a barometer. It's completely stupid, but we do it. So we assume that everybody else's life has commonalities with ours.
Right. And
Not so
not
much.
so much. No.
And that was the first time that I really, it was like,
Wow. Yeah.
holy crap.
Yeah.
He's afraid to get in the car and drive to West Palm Beach with me, because what happens when we need a hotel? What
Oh,
happens
no.
when we go into a restaurant?
Wow.
And this
And
was 1987. This wasn't 1,000 years ago.
right. And that's when, I mean, the civil rights movement was, in the 60s. You would think that that had changed. But I mean, in the South, I don't know that it has changed much,
It's subtle. I mean, it's funny because within my first couple of weeks of being in West Palm Beach, I saw a Ford pickup truck. No shade to Ford, but it was a Ford F-150 with a bumper sticker that said, "My wife, yes. My dog, maybe. My gun, never," with a Confederate flag in the back window.
Oh,
And I was like, welcome to the South, you
yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
people don't think of Florida as the South. They get fooled by the palm trees and the beaches, you
Mm-hmm.
know? But it's the South in a lot of ways still, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
that's how art, because the ideal thing would be for people to communicate with each other
Mm-hmm.
as people. And
Mm-hmm.
there have been organizations that support that. There have been, I forget what company it was that actually did a video documentary of people of different colors and genders and, whatever, meeting each other one-on-one and having conversations. That's the ideal.
Mm-hmm.
But art is the next best thing.
Right. It does. It
You
does
know, whether
open
it's
eyes.
yeah, whether it's television or movies or a painting or an article, an essay,
Mm-hmm.
that's the next best thing, because if through my expression I can make you feel something, I've accomplished my job as an artist.
Right. And that's so true. That is so true.
Yep.
I mean, most of my art when I do it is just basically realism, but once in a while I'll throw something in there that's a little different. And that with Pittsburgh all night, that
Mhm.
Pittsburgh art all night, I mean, that's a good chance to like show and when you can go there and see those things, you think, yes, that's right. Yes, that's
Because everything that you see or read or watch plants a seed.
right.
What you choose to do with it, if you want to starve it and drown it or whatever, that's up to you. But if you nurture it by continuing to view and see and read more things like that, they'll blossom into sprouts.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's so important. And I don't think people realize that don't do the arts, like what we are trying to do to show these things through that form.
Yep.
So it's amazing. It really is, so
Well, and it's been done through history,
right.
in different forms.
Right.
So it's I mean, that Norman Rockwell painting is just singed into my brain,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
because it makes me think, how did she feel?
Mm-hmm.
She really wasn't in a place in her cognitive development to like write an essay about it,
Mm-hmm.
but
Right.
she felt things.
Yes. Well, that's the same. I mean, I saw a photography like years ago with things too, a photograph of all these buffalo that had been slaughtered
Mm,
and the Native American side of this. And a man is standing there smiling like this was great, you know. And there, it was a mound of buffalo. I mean, it was huge.
yeah.
And I'm thinking, what's wrong with people doing this?
I know. Well, it's like that photograph from the Vietnam War.
Oh,
Remember
right.
that one that was on the cover of Time magazine, that
Yeah.
child?
Yeah.
I mean, I taught creative writing in prison at one point, a women's prison at one point. And I got into it. I belong to the National League of American Pen Women. There isn't a branch here in Pittsburgh, or I would still belong. And I got into it because a friend of mine from Pen Women taught art classes there.
Mm-hmm.
And she would hold an exhibition and sale at the end of every year of classes. The work these women created.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine.
you know?
can
So
imagine.
it's whether you play at it or use it as a form of therapy, you know, whether it's something you have your sights set on to be a professional at, whether it's just how you express yourself and nobody
Mhm.
else ever needs to see it.
Yes.
You
But
know,
still,
it's so important.
yeah, it is. You know, people need to know that even if they think it's terrible, you know,
Right.
it's something that it has to be expressed. This has been so interesting, Stacy. I really enjoyed talking to you. I mean,
I enjoyed it too. I know we went in places we hadn't planned to go,
well,
but
that's
you know, if people
important
want to
though.
find out about me, they can email me, they can go to my website, you know, whatever. These are the important things.
Right. Exactly. And I like that, you know, about us being able to pull those out, you know, and talk about it because sometimes people are afraid to talk about these things, you
Yeah,
know.
I'm not afraid to talk about anything.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah,
the same
I'm
way.
just not.
I'm the same way. You know, I get myself in trouble all the time. That's all right. I mean, it's important. We have to do that, you know. So,
You know what? I would invite you, instead of saying you get yourself in trouble, just to contemplate maybe adjusting that to I say things that people don't like sometimes. Because it's
okay.
not
That's
about
good.
you getting in trouble. That's your Catholic thing.
Yeah.
That's, you know, it's about sometimes I say things people don't like.
Yeah.
That's all.
And that's okay. You know,
Yep,
if they can't handle it. But yeah, that's a good way of
exactly.
putting it. That's a good way of
Because
putting
it
it.
puts the onus back on you, and that's not fair.
Right. And that is a Catholic thing,
It is. It's
unfortunately.
about punishment.
Right.
Yep.
We live by punishment.
Mhm.
We've been punished quite a bit in our lives.
Well, you know what? When you're 8 years old and forced to do the Stations of the Cross every year, that has an impact. I'm just
Yes,
saying.
yes, it does. It certainly does. Yeah.
I
That's
think
why
there
my
are
kids,
kinder ways
yeah,
to teach the doctrine.
right. There are different ways. Yes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, now this is, I'm going to put this out. I had one of the best theologian teachers and when I was at Carlo, and he was a Mennonite. But I'm going to tell you what, he could move you to do things that you never thought you could do. Well, they didn't like that there because all the kids and adults were taking his classes, you know, because he was so moving.
Right.
And they made him leave. And I thought, I couldn't believe that because it was the best ever that I learned that it's more theology than religion. That is the thing. We put that stigma on what we're doing. It's a theology, the doctrine, whatever you know you want to call it, because religion can really screw you up.
Well, religion's about control, in my
Right.
opinion.
Yes,
You know,
it
it's
is.
about oppression.
Right. And
Religion is the original oppressor.
yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and you know, I'm going to piss people off saying that. Okay,
What
so
is? It is
take it,
though.
leave it, do what you want with
Yeah.
it. But you know, at the very least, let it evoke an emotion in you that you then have an opportunity to explore,
Right.
because you always learn from that.
Exactly. And that was the way he was. You could explore things that you never expected, you know. And the first thing I thought about when I walked into that classroom, he was like, he had this long hair, he had these little John Lennon glasses, and I thought, oh, this is a hippie, you know, because I was like, you know, that
You're a
Catholic.
19-year-old Catholic girl.
Yeah, and I'm Catholic, you know, and boy, did he open my eyes to so much. I just really missed him, you know. And well, now I know he's teaching at Bethany College. He's a theologian there, and I just I can imagine those people that take his classes and what they come out to be because
He might appreciate hearing that.
yeah, he was extraordinary. Oh, he knows because I've told him that.
Okay.
He's afraid
No,
to
because
write
a
me
lot of
back.
times we don't. You know, that's the only reason I said it, because a lot of times we don't take the time to do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I tried to get him to stay. I mean, I had all the kids in these classes. I wrote a letter and they signed it. It was like a petition, and he said thanks, but I'm still having to leave. They took me to lunch, but I still have to go. And I said I just could have cried. You know, it was terrible. It was just terrible. But that was just the operation of the Catholic Church. You know, you just can't.
Well, and we bring all of these experiences to our art.
Exactly.
whether we know it or not.
That's right.
And I find it better if I'm aware of it.
Exactly. Well, that's true.
Because
That is
then
so
I'm not, then I'm just aware of it. And I just find the expression is more clean.
Exactly. Well,
So
this was great. I appreciate your
yeah, I
time.
really appreciate you asking me. And
Yeah,
it was really lovely.
yes, I'm so glad. Well, I'm going to make this the end, and
Okay.
I appreciate this, and it was great, and I hope everybody enjoys this as much as I did. So until next time, all right, we'll see you. Bye bye.
Bye.